So your mom, I know your mom was killed, right? But did they?
There you go. That's what I'm getting to.
Well, that's what Sam is kind of, I think, alluding to. It's obviously a very rough way to come up. Was it something that was ruled accidental and then declared a murder? There was some kind of something, I guess not. How am I trying to say that? It wasn't. It was changed. What they thought happened.
What happened to Jim Norton? How did a comedic star once so bright fade to such a pitiable glow? To the layman, it could be argued that Jim Norton's career is better than ever. With his own show on Sirius Radio, a wildly popular podcast, and his recent successful Netflix one-hour special, Mouthful of Shame, the 50-year-old funny man could arguably be seen as in his prime. But only when you begin to unravel the delicate layers of Norton's gastropodic shell can you begin to truly reach the epicenter of this man's perpetual misery. Much like the invertebrate he's often likened to, this documentary will tunnel its way to the core of Jim's apple, with a story boasting financial scandal, platonic betrayal, and romantic tragedy. We begin at the turning point of Jim Norton's fledgling stand-up career, namely his introduction to the Opie and Anthony show on WNEW radio. The show broadcasted from New York City and quickly gained a rabid popularity amongst a young male demographic not unlike that of the Howard Stern show. Jim's first appearance in September 2000 came courtesy of leather-clad goomba Andrew Dice Clay. Jim had become a regular opening act for Dice, usually leaning on sexually orientated material, often self-deprecating in nature and littered with onomatopoeic ejaculatory noises. Hosts Anthony Cumia and Greg Opie Hughes took an instant liking to Jim, and after a number of humorous quips, continued to devote the entire segment to getting to know him.
I like Jim Norton, man.
Thank you.
You like him, right? Yeah, he's hilarious.
Yeah, very funny.
He's effed up, but he's hilarious.
You know, well, he's got a lot of problems.
I see that by looking at him.
Psychopath. He's got a lot of issues. Tinkle issues.
Yeah.
You like the tinkle? You like... likes the tinkle. He likes a bucket of it.
Yeah, it's nice.
Despite having only wriggled his way into broadcasting months prior, the radio larvae's popularity with listeners skyrocketed. Enough so that the edgy WNEW shock jocks added Jim Norton on a full-time basis as a third mic in early 2001. The trio had captured lightning in a bottle, with Jim adding a hard-hitting cutting edge through bouts of puerile wit and riotous anger, often directed at hapless callers.
You've broken your man.
You really have.
You broke him.
Well, how about if I just come over and pour a little concrete and toss you in it?
Wow.
Do you realize you have the wit of an autistic?
Excuse me?
You have... And you're deaf. It's probably all that riveting, you dyke. It's probably all that work in the pit and the mechanic. You stink.
Marion's at home going, that comeback sucked.
You are the worst.
With early segments including a tour of Jim Norton and fellow comedian Jim Florentine's mold-infested apartment, his inclusion to the roster was a joy for Opie Hughes and Anthony Cumia, breathing fresh life to the show's otherwise banal dynamic.
Okay, go.
Opie, in particular, delighted in Jim's company on and off the air, often desperately exploiting the third mic's comedic talent for amusing fodder on his Opie Radio YouTube channel.
All right, I smell it.
They're so bad. I had half and half last night. By the way, when Anthony was leaving, Kenny opened his passenger door to fucking throw his bag in.
Yeah.
And I hopped into his truck and I fucking dropped a half and half gasser and slammed the door shut.
Through the mid-2000s, the Opie and Anthony show gained considerable acclaim in radio markets across the American East Coast. Debatably, one of Jim Norton's most significant contributions towards this came virtue of his relationship to his friends and fellow comedians, many of whom would regularly appear on the show.
And the circle is called Keikel. So that's what they would just shorten it to Kike. The guys coming in and say, here's another Kike once they've seen the circle.
You know where nigger came from originally? There was some black guy being a nigger.
So they called him a nigger. Jesus!
Louis C.K., Nick DiPaolo, Patrice O'Neal, Rich Voss and Bill Burr were just some of the soon-to-be stand-up titans to weave their way into the O&A fabric.
You just see him pulling up to the gig in his family Cressida, blasting Ace of Base to get himself inspired.
He was shadow boxing before he ran on. He was like,
and he had on muscle pants.
I know. The only muscle you have is the one that's usually in your mouth.
This Rat Pack represented an embarrassment of comedic riches on the East Coast, and Norton found himself amongst highly skilled peers in friendly competition. And it was elder statesman Colin Quinn who would prove the most influential to the New Jersey-born comic. So much so that Jim would begin to adopt mannerisms from Colin, and even mimic the condescending approach Quinn would take during arguments.
Now, Baby Boy recently performed at the University.
No, you guys are throwing so many questions at me at once.
That's one question, Baby Boy.
Did it ever occur to you maybe it's calm up for smashing my brownies, you two scumbags?
I told this fucking scumbag from Hawaii. Did you guys go on the radio and promote?
You got to get out there.
Shut your mouth, stupid.
Come on the show? How's that going to be an original idea? So if Ant says it, he's stealing from Opie? Shut up, stupid.
Ooh, tell him, Fred.
It wasn't long before television capitalized on the impressive array of talent, with Comedy Central gifting the former SNL Weekend Update anchor his own talk show. Jim would join a roster of industry titans such as Judy Gold, Lisa Lampanelli, and Rich Voss.
I would like to issue an extra violent fatwa. He ignored me. Against Rosie O'Donnell for the crimes of being a self-righteous, hypocritical, morbidly obese manatee with bad tattoos and no magazine.
At this time, Jim would be best remembered as an outspoken and somewhat culturally enlightened voice on the show, particularly following the events of 9/11 and the Iraq War.
Won't be able to corral. There's going to be madness in the streets next week, don't you think?
Why are they protesting? There's nothing more aggravating than people who come here from these third world holes and then do nothing but complain about how repressive the U.S. government is when they wouldn't dare stand up in the third world dump they come from because they'd be shot or gassed, and it's just irritating to listen to.
Oh, that's racist.
This radical approach to what is now considered a tabooed subject would also bleed into his onstage material, with Jim's 2007 HBO special Monster Reign somewhat critical of Islam, the religion of peace.
You can't make fun of Islam because that makes you Islamophobic, which is fear of Islam. Okay, accurate. Look, I don't hate Muslims, I really don't, but as a group, their problem-handling skills are not good.
But it was on the Opie and Anthony show where Jim Norton's apparent intolerance to religious minorities would come alive. To his listeners, such a dogmatic defiance was seen as a breath of fresh air.
I'm agreeing with you, Ant, I'm so sick and tired of them being frightened of offending people.
Yep.
I want everybody with a bad mustache and a hyphen in his last name to be bodily searched before he gets on a plane.
Accepting the kindness of his peers became a regular fixture in Norton's early career, and having already exhausted the generosity of Colin Quinn, Jim would now be hand-fed a second opportunity on cable television.
Oh, of course there's a God.
What proof is there of that?
Well, who do you think made you, asshole?
The fuck does that mean?
Where'd you come from?
My mother's cunt.
In Louis C.K.'s HBO series Lucky Louie, Jim would play Louis' friend and local drug dealer Rich, giving a nod to Jim's own dark history of drug and alcohol addiction. The show was cancelled after one season.
Excuse me! Hello! Are you my friend?
Oh, it's so nice to see you.
There you go, pal.
Thank you! You are nice persons.
The years between 2006 and 2010 are widely considered to be the apex of Jim's irreverent comedy stylings. Having now found his voice, Norton's newfound confidence radiated through the airwaves, and even the likes of political provocateur Jesse the Body Ventura were no match for the Garden State humorist.
You guys are just full of shit. You're warmongers. It's like that's not the truth.
Yeah?
Yes.
I stand corrected.
Thank you.
You're a great American.
Well, I'm not saying I'm a great American, but I'm not a warmonger.
When your country calls, you're there.
Hey, I've never been in the military, so you're brave, I'm a coward, I have no right. We got it. Stop.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did, through implication. We all speak this. We have the commonality of language, so you can't say, did I say that, when you say something. You did it to me. You said I don't believe in the Constitution.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Jess.
Governor.
You always just sulk and walk away. Why?
No,
you
I'm
put
not.
words in my mouth.
Hey, there's a fucking guy here telling me I got a schedule, asshole.
You're using dirty language, asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Bye, tough guy.
Bye, tough guy.
And thanks for your service to our country.
You're welcome. Thanks for touching me with your fucking stupid riff-raff fucking Rocky Horror hairdo. You're bigger than me and stronger than me, so what? I don't give a shit. You want to beat me up, go ahead. I'm not going to fight a guy like you. That means nothing to me.
This also became a period of Opie and Anthony best known for providing a comedic sanctuary for tough crowd alumni.
Go ahead with his new style. Instead of combing it over, he just lets it go crazy like this on purpose.
It's like 2 weeks away from kicking a football and missing it.
Shut up and let it
You might have lost a few.
Charlie
You might have lost a few up there.
This fucker's trying to do the something about Mary's sperm hair. And it's just...
You're damn right I am.
Son of a bitch. Good. I'm glad you're going bald, so now tell the story.
All right.
Fuck.
Asshole.
All right.
This nincompoop.
Holy shit.
Oh no. Oh no.
Jim was in full swing, and his outrageous antics were in perfect unison with satellite radio's rock and roll ethos. This included benchmark bits such as Norton exposing his penis on air and urinating in his friend's breakfast.
To me, I'm sticking with like that this was about democracy.
Yeah.
That was a democratic notion to say.
And you're not even wrong.
What is he pissing? Jim is pissing in my oatmeal. Jim is literally pissing into my oatmeal. I was half done. He just pissed into it.
I thought he was just going to stick his dick in it.
That's what I thought too.
I'm like, all right, it's pretty funny.
All right, I'll still eat it.
He's going to hover it around it.
Yeah, if his dick was near it, I would still eat it.
Right, but no, it actually.
You just pissed into my oatmeal.
Look, Jimmy just pulled his dick out
and pissed into my oatmeal.
The relationship between Jim Norton and co-host Anthony Cumia had also blossomed, with the known race realist often bringing Norton to wild hysterics.
What if life is so much sweeter if you could cue the weather with your hands?
Boy.
And what if all your questions had rhyming answers and you never left home without...
I can't listen to this.
This is so gay.
But it's good, though.
It just reminds me why I don't go
Neil
to
Patrick
Broadway.
Harris is very Broadway.
Life would be fun if imagine. But can you imagine controlling the weather with your hand?
Oh, it'd be great.
Or there's a band everywhere you walk in?
Yes.
Ah, da, 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 like that scene in The Godfather.
Control the weather with your fist. Make a mudslide.
In another incident of indecent exposure, the Opie and Anthony show arranged for a promotional bus tour featuring a plethora of nude participants, visible to the public.
Hold on. Let's go to Rick. Rick.
Hey guys, holy crap! These guys are coming out with those things you use to cut people, those quick little plastic things.
Oh, stop! If this is one of those gags.
Dude, this is not a freaking gag. There's a major problem happening.
I don't mean you. I mean a police department gag.
I don't know, man. I think the cops that are on our side are talking to the cops that are being told to do something about it. We've got a woman with a very official-looking mask on who might be controlling the situation, so to speak.
The crude stunt drew large crowds and stalled traffic, and Jim was later arrested.
Just in case a big yellow bus with a broadcasting microwave dish on top of it is not enough of an eye grabber, why not put 5 or 6 topless women inside looking out? And just in case that isn't enough to draw a crowd, why don't you get Opie and Anthony, a popular drive-time radio show, to give you updates on just where the bus is?
A recurring feature of the Opie and Anthony show were Jim's open wound style self-revelations. He would candidly discuss the more unsettling realities of his sexual appetite, stalking the street corners of New York City, for friends of the night.
Have you ever been arrested?
No. Not that I can't ever be arrested, but I'm very careful. I'm not careless. I don't take it for granted. I'm not a dummy.
But he's been with, like, a crap load of these girls.
Yeah, but he's got, like, spidey sense.
He does.
He's got hooker sense.
Spidey sense.
It just tingles.
And I'll pass up a real one before I'll pick up a bad one. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so cautious and so paranoid about what one time I was talking to this whore.
Holy crap! There's always a one time. I mean, I'm loving it, but the one time never ends with this.
Dude,
guy.
I'm talking to a whore. I'm like, hey, baby, you want to go for a ride? We'll hang out. And she's just glaring at me. And I realize that my passenger window is down, and there's 2 detectives in a car sitting right there, listening to everything I'm saying. So this hooker is staring at me like, just shut your mouth, ass. And I look at the cop, and he goes, I know, you need directions to the tunnel. I'm like, get out of here.
Meanwhile, Jim would rarely shy away from expressing his enthusiasm for bodily odours, with armpit, feet and fecal fragrances amongst his favourites.
And the fucking, there's something about that fucking smell, it drives me. But again, it can't be that fucking oniony pit odor. But if you have a good chemistry with somebody, there's something about that makes me crazy, man.
Yeah. And do you like BO or do you like that?
Yeah, BO on a chick.
BO, actual BO.
But I like the mouth to be clean. I want her mouth to taste clean. I don't want her fucking ears to smell waxy. I don't want her belly button to stink. The feet can smell a little bit. Honest to God, I like that a little bit, man. A little bit of a fucking foot, a little sweaty. And the ass can smell a little bit and the pussy a little bit. As long as it's not...
Jim's deviancy would extend to new heights, exemplified by the fetishization of the trans community. Jim became something of a trans ally, despite his immediacy to sexually objectify the group.
But a transsexual is fully...
Oh, transsexuals are everything. They're fun. They laugh a lot.
How do you... Wait a minute. How do you even involve yourself with a transsexual or a transvestite and it's not gay?
And here's the finance right with the Patrice, that you live in America. Just because you go to England, it doesn't make you a European. You're just visiting.
Jim's affinity for trans relations would spark a debate amongst peers around his sexuality, with the subject often discussed on the Opie and Anthony show.
I just want to defend my friend Norton, and I didn't know how to rationalize it. You know, me and my girl talk, and you know, we listen to the radio, and Norton, she's like, Norton's gay. If you sleep with a transvestite, I was like, I don't know, Norton's not gay.
No. For some reason,
and
Norton
all I do is
gets
just say no.
A pass.
Yeah. Jim Norton gets to pull it off somehow.
He's a heterosexual guy.
Yeah. I say
but he gets a pass on
he's not
few
gay.
things.
I go, no, he's not gay.
No, I honestly, I'm not. If I was, I'd tell you, or I'd tell her, or I'd tell somebody. But maybe I wouldn't tell myself. No, because a lot of times I look in the mirror, I'll just wake up and I'll look in and I'll go, you're not, you know, and I'll walk away.
It'll work.
The question would also be thrown at Jim in interviews, with accusations of homosexuality abound.
But what is it that you are, why are you attracted to transgender women?
I don't know, any more than somebody knows why they like blondes or brunettes. I have never analyzed what is it that I like about them or what is it that I don't like about certain girls. I really don't know. I mean,
do you think you're gay?
No, I wish I was gay. If I was gay, I would just say I'm gay. I would have no problem saying that, but I love women, so no.
Jim Norton's fabled sexual degeneracy would further play out on air in unusual and disturbing ways. Jim would tap into terrifying corners of his psyche, creating a roster of bizarre characters in the process. One of Jim's more alarming creations is 57-year-old pederast Uncle Paul Hargis.
I'm here to play turkey foot with all the little pilgrims. Come in here, Timothy. Let Uncle Paul show you how to fit a drumstick in your little mouth.
The character epitomized Jim's willingness to push the boundaries of sexual depravity. There are also suggestions that Uncle Paul is an ode to co-host Anthony Cumia's rumoured penchant for romantically targeting the young.
If you want a January-December romance, but you're tired of everyone being a blabbermouth, try Uncle Mingle.
For the first time, I found someone I can communicate with. Oink, oink, oink. That'll do, piggy.
One of Jim's less controversial alter egos soon became a fan favourite. Ted Sheckler, an ambitious if misguided entrepreneur, would eagerly detail his zany business ideas, much to the confused delight of his co-hosts.
I investigate the paranormal.
Oh, Ted.
Yes, there are plenty of ghostwriting products, and you can get them at Ted's Ghostwriting Products Emporium. I've got everything from fans
Emporium
to other things that make the wind move. I investigate ghosts and goblins and such. I investigate ghosts.
You've seen a lot of ghosts.
I've seen many! And I leave the premises immediately.
That's not much of a ghost hunter.
I didn't say I was a ghost catcher. I just find them and leave quickly.
By far the most prolific of Jim's characters is the impetuous Chip Chipperson, an unapologetic embodiment of the comedian's id. The character was apprehensively debuted in December 2009 and originally conceived as an infuriating tool to irritate his former girlfriend.
Let's do the
But it's not good in Canada or Alaska or Hawaii, but where would you... Go ahead, Chip. What are you gonna do Waikiki snowboarding or something?
That's Chip?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chip is a comic?
No, he's just a guy who says some funny stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well.
Girlfriend hates Chip.
Yeah?
Hates.
The early incarnation of Chip enchanted his in-studio colleagues, and in particular Greg Opie Hughes, the unwitting target of Jim's failed barbs.
I ain't dancing without music.
All right, hold on.
With teeth.
Teeth. Chip wants to dance to Lady Gaga, Teeth.
Let's go dance.
You can hear in your headphones. This is Chip dancing.
What the hell is he doing?
One particular clip illustrates why the older iteration of Chip Chipperson worked so well. Conflict was key to the character, with this exchange between him and Neanderthalic intern of dubious heritage Sam Roberts a prime example.
Idiot.
You're an idiot.
You're an idiot.
Fucking jerk off cocksucker.
You're a jerk off. You know who's a cocksucker?
You're
Literally,
a cocksucker.
Your mother is.
My mother ain't no cocksucker.
Yes,
Never,
she is.
never. She spit on him to get him away from her.
You know whose cock she spit on? Troy's.
No, she didn't spit
Yes,
on
she did.
Troy.
Yes,
no,
she
she
did.
didn't. She's
Yes, she
rumored
did.
that. She said Troy was very handsome.
Now you're jealous and ashamed.
Shut up.
Because she got the suck
Fucking
dick.
piece of garbage.
And you didn't.
I hope there's fucking AIDS piss in your damn Schweppes.
Well, there isn't.
Drinking AIDS piss.
And you don't
you
get it from
fucking piece
piss.
of shit.
Cry.
Mother's a saint on earth.
Cry,
Fucking
stupid.
cocksucker. You're stupid.
You're stupid.
You didn't even graduate kindergarten school.
I graduated college.
No, you didn't graduate college. Your mother's got all your hair stuffed in her asshole or something.
The character was largely modelled on Opie's unquenchable habit of sabotaging amusing segments with awkward non sequiturs.
Holy shit, fucking Scorch is digging deep here.
Yeah.
Oh, poor bastard.
Poor
Yeah,
wretched, that poor wretched bastard.
Chip have something to say?
Yes, maybe you could you come on and juggle or something, you know. He really is a fucking emergency brake.
It is.
We're all flying through the windshield right now.
Greasy, sweaty fucking hand on a rusted fucking brake handle on a train.
Yeah.
Hope the airbags work on it.
Oh, Jesus.
The origin of Chip could also be sourced to Jim himself, with suggestions that the character acted as a buffer of bad jokes, allowing the comedian to entertain his derivative impulsions.
I feel like Chip is kind of a combination of Bobo and David and a lot of other people.
David? Yeah,
I miss David.
I think Chip is sort of like a compilation of those guys.
Of all the
And of course, the part that nobody wants to face, it really is Jim in his purest form. Chip is Jim.
Jim boiled down to its purest, most concentrated form.
Chip further functioned as a form of escapism for Norton's romantic and sexual angst, often revealing what Jim was too afraid to directly confront. Using the character to express real-life dilemmas became a fundamental element of Chip's hostile disposition, and embodied a clear sense of despondency in Jim's frustrated existence.
That was a great impression, by the way.
Yeah,
Spot
sucks
on.
peckers. Holy shit. You want to hear one more time?
Okay.
Hey, guys, you want to hear about politics? I know you listen to the show to laugh, but I'd love to tell you some politics. Sure, drop a couple. Oh, I'm not gay. You're a woman. Oh, fucking fruit cup cocksucker.
Following the unfortunate passing of O&A titan Patrice O'Neill, the show's quality suffered drastically. Anthony Cumia's black wave of paranoia began to dictate conversation, and the show's decline was inevitable. In July 2014, Anthony's fixation with racial purity culminated in media controversy, after sending racially charged tweets following a late-night altercation in Times Square.
But
That's what happened. Apparently, there was a confrontation on the street, and he said that he was accosted by an African American woman, Janie.
Yeah, those were some of the nicer tweets.
Sorry.
Those were some of the nicer tweets. I mean, my stomach turned when I was reading the entire thread. And honestly, I have to say, my humble opinion, that Sirius did the right thing and that he needs to seek help. I think that this shows a very angry man who needs to get some counseling over his feelings.
Despite his extremist sentiments being nothing new to those familiar with Anthony, SiriusXM fired the intolerant entertainer, thus forcing a tough decision for Opie and Jim Norton.
I didn't know we were actually going to make it back on the air.
Right.
And you guys have to understand something too. Like, it's hard when all of a sudden you think like, okay, am I just going to lose? Like, I have a 25% of a year's salary coming. Like, is that just gone now? Do I have to just all of a sudden go back on the road on dates that I didn't realize I was going to have to fill? Like, I'm panicking because of myself, too. You guys have to understand we have our own financial worries.
In the first of many major cases of professional and platonic betrayal, Jim cast Anthony deep into obscurity, choosing instead the status, exposure, and imagined riches of SiriusXM. Opie's relationship to Anthony had famously soured over decades of mutual resentment, but Jim was his best friend and closest confidant. It was widely expected that he would have followed Anthony out of SiriusXM, especially given their high profile and huge popularity.
Well, a lot of people feel like, the obvious show is you and Anthony, so why aren't you doing that?
I mean, well, first of all,
because you guys absolutely still had the chemistry. When me and Anthony were extremely popular, it was because we had amazing fucking chemistry. And then when you came in, we all had amazing chemistry. By the end of the Opie and Anthony show, me and Anthony's chemistry was shit. But you guys still had really good chemistry. And that is out there. A lot of people wonder why you and him aren't doing a show together. It's a real question.
I understand that.
Without Anthony, Opie and Jim would form an uncomfortable alliance, whilst fans of the show continued to berate Jim for abandoning who they considered a far superior collaborator.
So it depends on what you mean, dude. Do I think some of it is legit? Sure. I mean, I get why they miss Anthony. I miss Anthony, But then there's times where I'll say that, and the reaction is like, well, if he missed it. And then sometimes they just say things like childish, this is my job. Like, I know you guys love the show, or you used to love the show, but what do you think? We're just guys that get together as a hobby? Like, it's a way to make a living.
It was at this time that the worm associations began. Not only was Norton physically amorphous and devoid of hair, his constant predisposition to self-interest at the expense of loyalty attracted the more negative associations of serpentine behaviour. Meanwhile, the Opie and Jim show proved a total disaster. The discomfiture between the two would become ever apparent, and the overwhelming tension would soon manifest itself in petty and melodramatic swipes on air. A show known colloquially as the Esther Coup was the epitome of belligerent triviality, as the two middle-aged men exchanged inconsequential blows oozing with effeminate passive aggression.
I'm not a fan of Uncle Paul, you know that. We've talked about it, whatever. But you're not a fan of some of the stuff I talk about either, so it's just what it is.
But I don't stare into a monitor like I'm being molested when you're doing it.
No, you stare into your phone or completely ignore me. I mean, it happens all the time.
But believe it or not,
it happens all the time. If you're not into what I'm saying, you completely ignore me. Are you kidding me? Do you really want to have this conversation?
Yes, I do.
You sit there and go on your phone and completely ignore me. But I feel like I'm talking to a wall.
I know you do, but not realizing that I can look at my phone and I can also participate in a discussion. I know how to talk as well.
You tap out. You completely tap out on things. You know that.
Maybe if we're talking about something and you just automatically switch the subject because you don't want to talk about it, maybe then.
No, it's a tough spot to be in. Sometimes I just...
No, I know. I don't know how to talk. I'm talking before.
No, I'm just saying. What? Talking about before? What happened before?
We're talking about Sydney Party. We're just doing something. I'm talking about something. Right. And then all of a sudden it's like, so Trump... And it's like, okay, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you with my personal life. Like, you just...
Wow, you're crazy. You're literally crazy.
How is that crazy?
That bit was fine.
Whether through apathy, comfort, or fear, Jim's reluctance to directly act to improve his situation became a severe problem when working exclusively with Opie. Rather than join Anthony's new independent network, presumably as a partner, Jim would rather endure, often complaining about the chain of command. Opie was still the boss, a fact the infuriated comedian would come to realise during the D.L. Hewley appearance of July 2016.
That man who shot those police officers in Dallas should have suffered horribly. That was a murder. That was no different. He was a murderous dude who perpetrated a horrible act. the same to me. When you kill somebody, whether your skin is black or brown or your uniform is blue, I feel a sense of loss. But people only act like one thing matters.
Right.
Jim spent the duration of the interview silent and stone-faced. He had felt D.L. Hughley had shown a lack of respect following a late cancellation for an appearance on Jim's pilot a year prior.
This is the most fun I've had doing this.
All right.
What's wrong with Jim? Are you all right?
We had issues before, so
Really?
no big deal. Yeah.
I've never seen this before. I'm like, what happened?
Quiet Norton.
I've never. It's a,
Quiet, unopinionated Norton. Is
I
one of
haven't
his new
seen him this
characters.
quiet since the episode of Power.
It's one of his new.
We had, well, the issue was DL, if you want to get into it.
Really? What
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah, because I like you very much. I knew he'd say that, so I'm kind of glad I did that. But when I had that pilot and you had to cancel, I understood, but you told us an hour before, after we had rented the studio, and the day before, my manager was like, "Are you sure you can come tomorrow?" And your people were like, "Yeah." And then an hour before you canceled, and I just never heard from you. So I kind of took that really personally.
I don't blame you. And let me tell you.
And I happen to like you very much. So to me, it was like, I didn't want, and I think you're a genius. I genuinely do.
Right.
But it was one of those things where, you know, like I feel like a dick. Like the guy has no respect for me, obviously, as brilliant as he is. No. But I mean, then I'm like, why would I have him in the show? So Opie knew that. And he knew that I wasn't feeling that. And, you know, he's like, well, DL does good radio. And then he said, I'm like, well, you know, I have an issue with it. And he goes, well, why don't you just tap out for an hour? So he was basically saying that I should have left for an hour before. But I'm like, I can't do that because they pay me to be here.
After receiving a sincere and heartfelt apology from a somewhat perplexed Hughley, Jim redirected his mindless hostility towards Opie for booking the guest. It seemed as though Jim was content with continuing his misplaced bitterness towards DL, and felt Opie had undermined his childish abstention from talking to the Hollywood actor.
For me, at that time, he was, and Roland knew this too, he was a definite no.
Right.
And I said to Roland, and I had expressed to you, look, man, for me, this is a guy I just do not want come. I knew eventually I would squash it with him because it wasn't a visceral hatred. I was just pissed about the way that thing was handled, and I'm like, the guy never texted me, so he obviously doesn't give a fuck about me. So like, why would I help him promote? That was basically it.
And I was trying to push you just to have a conversation with him, you know.
Maybe, but I mean, it was one of those things where for me it was a hard no, and this is why I don't want anything to do with Roland, because I know that he does as he's told. I know that Roland has a job to do, and he's good at it. But I also know that he just keeps coming back going, yeah, I like to command, yeah, I like to command. I know how he does it. He doesn't give a fuck that for me it was a hard no.
Eventually, the cord snapped. Opie had found himself ousted in an act of devious treachery, partly at the hands of his radio apprentice, former intern Sam Roberts. Rather than give Opie the courtesy of an explanation, Jim conspired with the self-titled Last Professional Broadcaster to have Opie covertly removed from morning radio. After meeting with management, Jim arranged for the Opie and Jim show to be split in two, with the comedian teaming up with a 33-year-old toy collector and wrestling fanatic. Opie had gifted Jim an exceptionally well-paid platform reaching millions of dedicated followers, only for the tri-state mollusk to once again act in betrayal and utter self-interest. Greg Opie Hughes took to the beach to vent his frustration, even landing a worm-like jab at Norton in the process. He further took to online media, claiming to have been blindsided by the move to afternoon radio and confirming he was not told until a week prior. Understandably vexed by Jim and Sam's duplicitous antics, Opie began posting cryptic videos to his Instagram, such as the following in which he likens the pair to opportunist sharks.
Good morning, lamb chops. This is Opie, and I want to thank everyone that reached out to me trying to figure out what's going on with me and the future of my radio show. And well, here you go. I feel like I have to tell you something. I do not do morning radio anymore. I do not do radio with Jim Norton anymore. I found out through my agent that Jim Norton will continue with Sirius. I believe he signed a contract a couple of weeks ago, according to my agent. and it looks like he'll be doing a show with Sam Roberts. Let me leave you with a little lesson. Keep your head on a swivel, because you never know.
Jim's response was to conceitedly mock the radio veteran before claiming SiriusXM demanded he stayed in some capacity. And despite Norton's relationship with Opie being understandably irreparable at this point, the underhanded nature of Jim and Sam's approach left a sour taste, especially given the life-changing opportunities generously granted to the pair.
You know, I'm not a guy who runs around bragging about, oh, I'm great at this or that, but I know that I can be really funny on the fucking radio. So I got really aggressive at one point when it's like, dude, you know, I know we're not doing an amazing radio show together. Let's be real honest. He knew it and I knew it. Mm-hmm. But as far as us being sharks who were plotting, we enjoy hanging together, so I'm hoping we do something. But don't act like we were just plotting motherfuckers.
An exasperated Jim would dedicate large segments of his news show defending his actions, with the elderly grub frantically meandering through a long list of half explanations and justifications.
The other thing I think that you wanted to say something about was the tweet that Opie was not happy with the fact that you had signed your contract a week or two ago, and he had to find out from his agent.
Well, we're not that close.
Oh.
Why, seriously, why would I call you? First of all, it's not a secret. I assume Bob told him. It was some big secret. I just signed it. But the fact that he's just getting his news from Twitter and feeling victimized and squeezed out. Look, man, and as far as me not calling you, no. Why would I call you?
Few would begrudge Jim breaking free of Opie for personal or professional reasons. The seasoned broadcaster was notoriously difficult to work with, and equally challenging was maintaining a comedic rapport. But the manner in which he did so was characteristic of a self-serving and subversive nature in which opportunities are always taken with little in return. To Jim's most ardent of defenders, Chip Chipperson became a notable saving grace for the comical deviant. So much so that Jim often entertained the idea of expanding the universe of Chip to other formats. The personal effort and incalculable cost had until now hampered Norton's enthusiasm in generating content utilising his characters. That said, rotund cartoonist Coke Logic had spent years animating O&A material for free, with views in the hundreds of thousands, despite the personal financial burden of such a project. Clearly, the potential was there.
There's no need to have any fear. In a bear market, there's always going to be NASDAQ trading. Sell at $1.50. The Dow is irrelevant.
Well, what about Synergy?
Synergy is for faggots.
As streaming platforms grew, so did their eagerness to commission, thus expanding their original content's library. And with Rick and Morty fast becoming a commercial sensation despite catering to an exclusive high IQ fan base, an already established and hyper-engaged audience could elevate Chip Chipperson to similar heights. Given the positive reception of fellow comedian Bill Burr's F is for Family, Jim saw a potential financial windfall waiting to be seized.
I'm putting you in charge of your sister today. You got that?
Yep.
Okay, if anything bad happens to her, I will come right home and I will put you through that fucking wall. Have a great day, Princess.
Unfortunately for Norton, similar opportunities were not quite as forthcoming. Without network backing, he would have to slither on alone, leaving behind a sticky trail of uncertainty. As a notoriously tight-fisted creature, Jim was adamant against personally investing in his own work. But given the potential of crowdfunding platforms to transfer the monetary burden of Flash animation to throngs of oblivious truckers, this task was made easier.
And the Chip animation, I believe the Indiegogo goes live at the end of this month. So every show have been asking me, and it's timing out well with the tour.
Oh, good.
So
Jimmy's got some things happening.
Do you have good perks?
Yeah, we're coming up with them. I'm taking suggestions for perks. I'm just signing the contract with the people who do the campaign. It's the whole thing.
If I think of some, can I tell you?
Please, I want you to.
All right, good.
Jim would begin to roll out his dastardly scheme, despite only raising $60,000 of his $200,000 target, and included pledges of up to $25,000 available in exchange for credits and cameos. Other pledges included a poster for $50, a retweet for $150, and a 15-second personal video for $500. The pledges would further entitle the investor to write and record dialogue, compelling Jim to include an ensemble of incompetent rubes in the creative process. Jim enlisted the help of Flash aficionados Big Hug Productions, who proceeded to turn Jim's artistic vision into reality. The co-conspirators produced a short pilot to an overwhelmingly negative response.
Bickerson, in case you didn't know, this is my show and it's fucking hilarious.
Despite being widely considered a critical flop, the show represented a personal financial boon for the $60,000 fugitive.
You know, I'm not going to get rich off of these characters. I'm not looking to make money for real, man. I'm not looking to make a shit ton of money.
To the show's critics, of which there were many, conclusions were drawn as to where blame would be most fairly placed. The show lacked any sort of tangible concept, resulting in an unforgivable onslaught of non sequiturs, catchphrases, and canned laughter. With no character or plot development, scenes were frustratingly bolted together, and the insistent lack of direction rendered the show an embarrassingly confusing affair.
My you-know-what is still bursting with horniness.
Why don't you grab a hold of that thing and show me what you can do?
But they'll sting my pecker.
No, they won't. Just rub this all over it first.
Ow! They're stinging my fucking pecker.
Quick, use this.
I had showed Colin that script a long time ago, and he said to me, he goes, yeah, but you need a story. Why are they here? Where are they going? And I was like, yeah, no, I know, but I'm just trying to get them, because I knew I had to make a video. I've never done a fucking campaign before for funding. I don't know exactly what I'm doing, obviously.
A hostile reception awaited Jim, with enraged Reddit users relentlessly condemning the project. Norton spent an hour fielding calls from disgruntled patrons, demanding he answer for his crimes.
Where the fucking perks?
Wait.
Where are the fucking perks, Jim?
This guy's pretending that he donated to the Chip cartoon. That's like his thing
right.
now.
I would have never fucking donated.
No, but you just keep calling up and reminding everybody that it exists. What's that?
Yeah, I just wanted, where's the money? That's the only question. I mean, they just were wondering.
I've answered the question already.
What the hell's going on?
This guy,
and he's got our hotline number, which is strange.
Yeah, bro, you're up in Trump Tower and you're fucking stealing from the working stiffs out there.
He thinks that I scammed the people for the Chip money.
Like 30 grand in fucking perks alone, and then like the 60, like I'm 60. Come on.
It's probably going to come to, the perks will probably come to about 20 grand.
Okay.
And then there'll be 41 left over to do the animation with. That's about what I'm going to be stuck left with.
Okay.
The cartoon is pretty bad.
But why do you think I stiffed people?
It just looks bad, dude. I mean, it's.
Eventually, the anger towards the comedian mutated to a form of mockery, and a chip-shaped albatross would find itself slumped around Jim's neck.
This is weird. Are we? It's just like, do we have a bad connection? Like,
no.
It's just.
Maybe
okay.
You're having a hard time hearing me. But it's almost like, a lot of times
I thought you might have a hard time hearing me, because like you still think this is a serious call. It's weird. So weird to me.
Oh, well, why wouldn't I think it's a serious call?
I just thought the whole, thing about robbing poor truckers out of their money to make a cartoon to make her go fall in love with you was pretty spot on.
Oh, wait, you think that I robbed truckers?
I don't think you robbed truckers. You robbed truckers.
How did I rob truckers?
Like a goddamn coin.
How did I rob truckers?
Well, I mean, not like so much like you played an accordion and a little monkey stole money out of their pocket, but I mean, close enough.
The crowdfund shyster had crossed a red line, as increasingly imaginative send-ups flooded the O&A subreddit.
Let's talk about how you were using Chip, the $60,000 fugitive. Did 2 cartoons, took the loot and split. Your Indiegogo said you were doing 6. It's so easy to see when a thief lies by how many times he blinks his eyes. Jimmy, why you stealing all your fans' dollars? Shout out to E-Rock and fuck Sam Roberts. O-N-A. Jimmy, he took your money, okay. Jimmy, he took your money.
To further compound Jim's misery, he was again lambasted by former O&A pests following Louis C.K.'s unfortunate mishap of 2017. After being ousted as a masturbatory exhibitionist, albeit to willing participants, Louis was deeply embroiled in the infamous Me Too movement. His comparatively consensual actions were unfairly associated to those of Kevin Spacey and Harvey Weinstein, resulting in a global blacklisting for the comedian.
According to a New York Times report, 5 women have accused the comedian of either masturbating in front of them or engaging in other sexual misconduct involving masturbation. After the Times published their report, HBO dropped him from an upcoming special and removed him from its on-demand services. His new film, I Love You Daddy, which you heard him just reference, has also been scrapped.
When addressing the news on the Jim and Sam show the next morning, Norton stopped significantly short of defending his fellow degenerate from a bombardment of rabid condemnation. Jim had always insisted he would never throw a close friend under the bus, and given the opportunities gifted to Jim by CK, it was generally expected he would spring to Louis' defense.
And I would never, ever fucking publicly throw one of my fucking friends who took care of me under the bus, even if I wanted to disagree publicly with what he said.
Right.
Ever.
Okay.
Jim would instead dedicate hours of the show castigating his Lucky Louie benefactor, suggesting that his actions were a serious problem in such hypersensitive times.
But to me, that one, the HBO one, is a problem as well, dude. It's not just the one, not just the hotel room, because you're at work, even though she gave her consent, it's like you're at work, and if you're above someone on the totem pole, like if you're a fucking intern and you ask the executive producer if you can jerk off in front of her and she says yes, that's different.
That's terrific.
Because she's the boss and you've got a great game. But if you're above someone on the totem pole and they're young and eager to work there, you gotta understand their yes may be tainted with uncomfortable.
The suddenly sensitive comedian's righteous grandstanding culminated with Jim offering sympathies to the women involved, in a cheap attempt to align himself with fashionable social justice trends.
In the room, or the person's looking at you and you're in the presence of a person who you admire, it is a little bit scarier.
Yeah.
And if they're higher up on the ladder than you, I don't think it's for career advancement. I don't think it's, hey, I'll let him jerk off and I'll go places so you're selling yourself out. I think it's, I'm uncomfortable and I'm scared that there's going to be a repercussion. And it's like, here's what I hope. I hope that he addresses it at least, and I hope that with these, I feel bad for the people it happened to. And I'm not saying that just because you're supposed to say it. I really do. It's got to be uncomfortable if there's somebody you admire and they, you know, like it's a work situation.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, I love this guy. Oh no, it's that. And you're not into it.
Some of the more telling quotes from Norton included an admission that we don't want to believe that we've been so wrong about a person. When asked if he would ever consider working with the shamed comedy Smith again, Jim responded by maintaining that he doesn't see that opportunity arising for a long time, and that it would have to be under the right circumstances. These were seen as unusual sentiments given his previous desperation to associate with the excessively demonized CK. In another interview, this time with Metro, Jim claims his close friend had effed up, and further defended the alleged victims, calling Louis' act a terrible and uncomfortable thing to have to deal with. He continues by reinforcing a popular feminist idea of power dynamic, before claiming to be the victim of a premeditated deceit at Louis' cold hands. It could be easily argued that Jim's sentiments are mostly fair, but to his detractors, Norton's allegiance ought to have been to his fairy godfather at his time of need. After all, Louis had gifted the SiriusXM host a career in television, so Jim's yielding to the fanatical movement was deeply troubling. This was further magnified by Bill Burr's strong defense of Louis C.K.'s sexual misadventures.
You know, and it doesn't seem to be like there's any sort of like, you know, in the judicial system, where there's like, if you steal a bike, you get this sentence. If you rob a bank, you get this. If you kill somebody, if you kill a whole bunch of people, all the way up to the death penalty. Yeah, this kind of seems like it's become, it doesn't make a difference if it's sexual misconduct all the way to sexual assault / rape. You know, you're getting the exact same level of punishment.
Meanwhile, fat piece of shit Robert Kelly added to the support of Louis alongside Puerto Rican podcast mogul Luis J. Gomez.
Nobody feels bad for Louis because his monetary shit about of boats and houses and money. We feel bad for Louis because emotionally he's in a fucked up place. He's got kids. He's got a family.
Well, the world is piling on top.
The world piled on top of him and are putting him with rapists and pedophiles, which he does not belong in, and he can't do anything about this. But we haven't heard his side. You don't know the nuances of these conversations. What happened with those girls? So you're saying that he said, "Well, go back to my room." They walked up to the room, no conversation. Got to the room, he got naked. They left. Fuck you.
Dude, if you go back to a man's hotel room, I'm sorry. I don't give a fuck. If this is for young men and women. If you go back to a dude's hotel room, let me explain to you something. He's trying to fuck you.
Fans were quick to identify the stark disparity of reaction between the controversy surrounding his close friend and accusations of joke theft aimed at current media darling Amy Schumer. Norton took a remarkably more measured approach to the comedian's flagrant plagiarism of Jim's dearly departed comrade Patrice O'Neal.
And I'm literally gonna take a polygraph test and put it on my show this season, and I promise whatever the results are, I won't let them cut. I will show that I had never seen Patrice do that bit.
You have a gorilla masker? Gorilla mask? That's you come in a face, right? And then take some pubic hair and throw it at her.
There's the Abraham Lincoln. That's where the guy trims his pubes, comes on the girl's face, and then throws the pubes so she has that facial hair.
You have a poltergeister? Poltergeist is good. Well, you need your friend though, right? Like you're fucking him from behind, and then you sneak out and he takes your place, and then you walk outside and wave at her through the window. And then you go, I'm here.
The worst one I've ever heard is the Houdini, which is where the guy's having sex with the girl from behind. Then unbeknownst to her, his friend subs in for him. Guy number one runs outside, knocks on the window, waves to the girl.
Schumer's staunch denials were significantly weakened by her earlier kleptomaniacal behaviour following admissions of petty theft in local department stores.
Like, I mean, it was just naming sex terms, like that anybody could know. Like, I like learning new ones, so I would have the audience tell me one. And the Houdini is the worst one that I heard. And I'd never, ever heard Patrice do that. I would never steal a joke from anyone, let alone someone that I loved so much.
Amy chose Jim Norton's endlessly repetitive advice show to address these allegations, blaming a succession of parallel thoughts taken out of context. For 53 minutes, Jim ceded the floor, affording Amy a platform to control the narrative. In the aftermath, Norton was left once again fielding angry callers on the Jim and Sam show, with listeners claiming he treated Schumer with kid gloves.
Why are you being so hypocritical with Amy?
How am I being hypocritical with Amy?
You let her go on your show yesterday, and she just sat there, and you never called her out on anything.
What was it? I don't agree with the fact that she stole the stuff. I know people are angry that I've taken that position, and I know they think that I've taken that position just because I want to get, but
because
a lot
you're
of
friends with her.
Yeah,
and all
but a lot
that.
of other people have taken that position too.
Have you not?
I genuinely, you understand what I'm saying? I believe her, and she wanted to come on my show, and she's been a friend of mine. Like, saying that I'm doing this just because she's famous. I know her long before she's famous. I treat her the way I would treat any other of my close friends.
Jim's decision to stand with Amy served as a fascinating case study in maintaining celebrity relationships. Louis was ceremoniously ousted from the entertainment industry, and his ability to help Jim was significantly diminished. Meanwhile, freshly body-positive Schumer has seen her career bloat to whale-like proportions.
DJ, hit it.
Regrettably for Jim, there would be little respite in the Worm's personal life. As a 50-year-old closeted bachelor with no recognisable shape, Jim's romantic options were rapidly diminishing. Norton's peculiar taste in women, men and everything in between had rendered the ageing performer undateable to his preferred demographic of the young and attractive.
Yeah, Christmas morning we get to wake up alone again and look at no tree, no presents. Oh yeah. It's a wonderful life. Get to have another escort come over and do nothing, and your dick doesn't work, and you're like, why am I doing this? I just want to hug someone. Can someone just love me? I ask you cunts out to lunch, not even the courtesy of a response. Why do you get hookers? I don't know, you fucking cunts, because I ask you out to lunch and you don't get back to me. That's why.
Jim's bitterness towards rejection was well known to listeners, especially following a bizarre rant against a former intern who had rejected his sexual advances, claiming he was too old.
Yeah, I was just wondering if I could ask Dana to marry me.
Dana, I think you should do it. You're getting old, and I don't like...
How old is he? Sounds old.
I'm 39.
Oh, hell no. You and Jim Norton should go out together.
How old is this fucking plain Jane? How old is this fucking straight-haired average bitch, plain Jane? Who the fuck do you think you are? You fucking average broad.
Oh, boy.
You fucking mediocre average intern broad. Fucking bagel fetcher. Fuck you.
Such a lack of self-awareness would be further underscored during his short relationship to Icelandic transsexual Princess Alina. Jim met the 5'11" pre-op cam girl on the X-rated streaming platform Chatterbait. Having earned the title of Prince following excessive token donations, Jim paid his way into Alina's inner circle. It was during these more intimate exchanges that Jim mistook her fiscally driven civility to a paying customer as a serious relationship.
Wound up going to some lovely restaurants. Niagara Falls. We did a little sightseeing in Niagara Falls. It was nice.
It's romantic. Look at you. You're a little romantic.
Hey, look, I wanted to go to Niagara Falls with a dear, lovely friend. So
Is she taller than you?
But you bet she is.
My sister-in-law, her husband.
She's
oh, yeah, dude.
She's taller than me.
Looks like that scene from Deuce Bigelow when you're walking down the street.
I'm a little fella.
That's a huge bitch. You hear shit? No, she's not that big.
No, she's 5'11".
The foundation of the imagined relationship was one of financial exchange. Not only would Jim fly the 21-year-old sex worker to Amsterdam and Toronto at his expense, he would further boast of buying the Icelandic princess expensive new shoes.
Some guys are into that. He likes her to wear like really high heels and stuff, so he goes around with this. So my sister-in-law looks like some kind of like Amazon on his arms.
You know, it's funny.
What is that about?
She usually wears flats when we're together just because I'm a fucking shrimp and she's probably humiliated. Yeah. But I bought her shoes this weekend and I was going to get her flats, but she found some she liked with the heel that looked great.
Yeah?
So I bought them for her and she was taller even. I was like, I don't care. The fuck do I care?
The supposed relationship became an inside joke to his friends and fellow comedians, with regular Jim and Sam guests Kevin Brennan, Louis J. Gomez, and Mark Norm all reacting to a parody Princess Alina Twitter accounts. After months of living out this absurd fantasy, Norton's amorous delusions were abruptly ended, after finding out his sweet princess was arranging to meet other princes.
It's something about myself that I like with this woman, is I've been honest with her. Like, I'm a liar when it comes to relationships. I lie, I cheat, I'm despicable. And then I feel victimized if you lie to me or cheat on me. But with this girl, I was straight. And I think she was pretty straight with me too. She's young, she's not perfect. You know, and I have to realize that people make mistakes too. Like, you got to give people room to fuck up. Not a devastating fuck up, but she fucked up, and she talked to someone she wasn't supposed to talk to. And she might have been willing to hang out with him. I don't know, but they didn't. She never, she never met the person she was talking to a lot. So I'm like, how do I want to ruin things over this? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, do I want to take that fucking thing? I'm justified wrecking her life. I don't know if I want to ruin it or not. That's a real crossroads. The last couple days has been bad, very bad.
To well-adjusted individuals, such heartbreak can usually be resolved after a night or two of heavy alcohol-fueled enjoyment. But Jim Norton is a 30-year addict, having given up all intoxicants as an 18-year-old teenager, following a few years of light mischief.
Today's 26 years sober for me. February 1st is my anniversary.
Congratulations.
But I'm saying it's amazing that I'm in a creepy mood on a day on a day that I should be
those thoughts
celebrating.
Because I think all those thoughts come front and center when it's an anniversary, don't you think?
Yeah, you tend to want to sabotage it, but I won't. But
26 years.
Yeah.
Jim's adolescent dabbling of alcohol was seen as an affront to real addicts, especially given the history of narcotic abuse his fellow comedians had endured. Rich Voss was a former homeless crack addict who performed oral sex acts for money, whilst Artie Lang once drank bleach before stabbing himself in the stomach 8 times when under the influence. Jim would continue to equate his superfluous struggle to theirs.
I mean, I always say that about you. But I mean, as far as like staying off drugs and alcohol, you say there's other stuff, Rich, that you battle. You guys have figured that part out. And to me, that is, at 50, I haven't come close to it, But even at 2 years, I wasn't doing the right. I was gambling. Because and that might have been my worst vice for a while, gambling, because that led to everything else. I had,
Go to a gym, walk a treadmill. Honestly, yeah, that helped me a lot mentally. And we only figured it. It sounds corny, but you literally figure it out a day at a time.
Right.
I'm not figured out for the rest of my life. There's been times where I've seen people eating edibles. I was up here one night doing a podcast. I'm sober fucking 27 years at that point, and they're eating edibles. And the urge hit me. I was like, oh my fucking God. I literally had to leave the room and call.
Why, were they shaped like a cock?
No, then I would have just sat on them. But they were in brownies or something, and it snuck at me in a way I never expected.
That shit,
So I went and called a couple of people,
right,
and then I felt better, and I came back in. But I wasn't expecting that.
Norton's supposed addiction would result in him having to remain hyperconscious of what he consumes. Meanwhile, callers would often ridicule the comedian, labeling Jim a dry drunk.
Here's a guy who got more tales about fucking whores and having a little boy suck his cock. I think what we got here is a dry, drunk homosexual.
Sir, why do you keep saying? Well, I'm sorry, ma'am. Why do you keep saying dry drunk?
Which is neuter gender.
Why do you keep saying dry drunk?
I'm so fucking angry, Jimmy. You forgot what step 6 and step 7.
Ew! Are you a fucking guy?
Yeah.
Ew!
There he is.
Are you a fucking guy in a place that's supposed to be anonymous, which I've never mentioned the name of on the air, fucking referencing it like that?
You're so full of shit.
Oh, you fucking old man bleeding deacon. Fucking drop dead. Pick up a drink and hit a fucking middle school, you fucking old cunt with a girl's name. Fucking die drunk and alone. Go fuck yourself. Hope your sponsor grabs his chest and falls face first into your cock. Fuck you.
Jim's crippling alcoholism was far from the only battle he was engaged in. The Jim and Sam show had so far been a resounding failure, with even dedicated listeners switching off in boredom and frustration.
While I work, I listen to the Jim and Sam show on Sirius XM. Yeah, I mean it sucks, but
you just get so mad. I like to get mad.
I mean, Norton has his moments. Sam Roberts fucking stinks.
Yeah, Sam's awful.
But then sometimes I'll just let it play because I'm like working on stuff.
Listeners quickly tired of the revolving door of bad guests, with porn stars, wrestlers, and UFC fighters now dominating the show.
Hello, sir.
What's going on, Cody? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kendra. How are you?
Hi.
Welcome, Kendra.
Where's Lainey?
Woo! It's just me.
Nikki Bella, where's Lana?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Adrian, you got to hit the button. Mary Jean.
Welcome to the program.
How are we?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Jim's been working on his impressions.
Yeah.
He's doing Lieutenant Dan now.
Oh, okay.
And there he is.
Hello, Roman.
What's going on, man?
How are you? Good, man.
Roman Reigns is here.
What's up?
How are you?
Really good. Good to see you guys.
You gotta be feeling good.
Oh, yeah, I feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you cut your hair.
Hey, Colby. How are you, man?
Welcome, man. How are you?
You too.
Many accused the pair of using the show's platform to indulge their interests, booking on the basis of who they like with a total disregard of their audience.
Okay, you're welcome, Jim. But the fanboy of you is another annoying thing.
What?
It seems like we have guests in just so you can get a picture, so you can get their autograph.
Yeah, there's been times where I'm too much of a fanboy. Here's the good and bad is this. There are times when I'm too much of a fanboy.
One of the more dedicated of O&A fans goes by the name Braunheiser. Not only does he moderate the O&A subreddit, but he also runs the popular YouTube channel Teft Pattern, streaming a colossal archive of O&A shows non-stop. I recently spoke to Braunheiser to unravel what went wrong for Jim and Sam. As an avid O&A listener, why did you stop listening to the Jim and Sam show?
So this question really kind of compares Opie and Anthony to Jim and Sam. And it kind of
implies that they're so different that an O&A fan would stop listening to Jim and Sam. And to me, that's absolutely true. I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there who will still kind of put up with it because it's something to put on the radio. It's kind of got a little bit of a taste of what they remember. It's just it's so careful to me. Anyone who would have liked O&A, I cannot imagine them getting into this.
How could Jim and Sam be improved?
I don't think there is any sort of outside factor or source or anything that an outside force can put into that can actually change it. That you could tell these guys what they need to do, but it's kind of hard because you do have to be kind of creative.
How have celebrity interviews impacted your enjoyment of the show?
The whole idea that they're doing interviews, question, answer, comment, question, and it's just this formula. And the interviews are always done different. Sometimes Jim is asking all the questions. Sometimes Sam's asking all the questions. When Jim is the question asker, Jim is panicky. He sounds like he's scared to ask every question. I think a lot of the times he asks really stupid questions. Like the factor of him being the one to ask the question alone, it kind of takes away his ability to throw the joke out at the answer.
How do these interviews contrast to the O&A format?
I think the reason a lot of people loved it was because you could go and find that guy who you've always just seen being interviewed, and he was kind of forced in a weird way to just sit down like almost at a bar and have a conversation. It's like they brought something out of these like boring celebrities that you just could not find even on Stern. You couldn't find it anywhere else because they just said, fuck asking this guy questions. Let's just see if he can fit in.
What are your thoughts on the abundance of wrestlers, porn stars, and UFC fighters on the show?
It's selfish. It really comes down to being extremely selfish and just completely inconsiderate of the people who have held on and tried to listen. And that's how like you repay them for that dedication. It's just do everything that you know they don't like and they haven't liked since fucking 2004 and do it excessively just because you always wanted to. It's like, fuck off.
And finally, how do you feel about the show's political and current affairs discussion?
It's almost as if now like they feel obligated to take a side and they wanted to pontificate. What should we do? Like you hear a point and their first reaction is just to go and balance it. It's like you've completely missed the boat. You missed the whole lane that you were meant to take. And what you're left with is just a bland, boring, say nothing, useless take. And because they don't really want to take either side, it's just this messy, uncohesive. It's not dangerous. It's not funny. It's not really interesting. It's just like vanilla, I guess. It's vanilla.
The final nail in Chip Chipperson's overdue coffin came courtesy of Tin Pot Podcast Network Riotcast. Chip would produce a weekly hour-long podcast, recycling hackneyed props and repetitive puns every Sunday evening.
It fucking gets me every time. What? So listen, thanks. What? What? My fucking goose is cooked. What? My goose is fucking cooked. You get it?
I do.
Fuck yeah, a little more goblin. Oh, guess why we're dressed like this? Wait. Guess.
Thanksgiving.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
With regular guests encouraging Chip's flow of ironic anti-humour, the same uncomfortable conflict that many once enjoyed was now replaced with a cacophony of catchphrases and passive-aggressive swipes at Opie Hughes.
Al-Anon is for family and friends of people that are
Hell yeah, you're an alcoholic, and what's his name's a dry drunk.
Right.
That's right.
Drunk.
I'll say that. Sure, I'm an autistic with tits. So what? Did he have an autistic motherfucker? That's what I am. Oh, now.
Worst of all for the Indiegogo Kid, another Nortonian theft was astonishingly exposed. Unbeknownst to O&A fans, Chip Chipperson was little more than a direct line-for-line reenactment of an old Jerky Boys character.
You're far from Daytona or Epcot or something? I don't think you know geography or something too well. That doesn't sound right. Florida and New York. You're being silly. Go ahead. What, you want him to try this thing out for you or something? What is he, like, oil is squirting all over the fucking place? Hot oil and gas and shit?
Of course, Jim would once again rebuff suggestions of a comedic pilfering, and with the help of receding primate Sam Roberts, shut down objectors having only played a few seconds of the Jerky Boys clip.
I want to, I'm going to take this, Ian in Chicago we're going to go to. This is just silly. Yes, sir.
What's cracking, baby?
Hey, buddy.
Ian, shout out to Sands Entertainment.
Oh, the guy's the best.
He really is a gem, isn't he?
He really is he's starting a revolution.
He's getting to the bottom of a lot.
There's a 16-second clip on YouTube that shows that Chippa might be stolen from the Jerky Boys.
You know,
I'm wondering if you could. Okay, yeah.
I believe it is true.
Yes, it's absolutely. That's what I did. I listened to the Jerky Boys and I said, aha, I'll ruin my personal life with this. No, the clip you're talking about, Ian, the character, it's a gay character that, which Jim Norton more stole than Chip, that he does, and where it goes, or something, he says, or you do this or something.
Let's hear the clip.
But yes.
Oil is something.
Yeah.
Hang on, let's hear the clip, bud.
You're far from Daytona or Epcot or something? I don't think you know geography or something too well. That doesn't sound right. Florida and New York. You're being silly. Go ahead. What, you want him to try this thing
That's
out
ridiculous.
for you or something?
I know the character. I listen to the Jerky Boys.
It's very ridiculous for a couple of reasons. We'll play that entire clip, which is about a 3-minute phone call, which I may have heard in my life. I don't remember it, but again, I've listened to the Jerky Boys, so it's possible that I heard it. But Chip evolved.
Jim Norton was once a beloved member of one of history's great radio shows. There was a time where the audacious comedian appeared electrifying, where his lightning wit, both raw and freshly opinionated, would deliver 10 years of boundless entertainment. But as we draw this tale to a close, it's plain for all to see. The worm has turned.